Mark, let's start with you. I mean, some of these companies are paying just 2% in tax. How on earth can that be right?
Let's be clear about this. They're paying maybe 2% in corporation tax. So this is the tax that's supposed to be levied on the company's profits. They'd be paying a vast amount of tax in all the other different ways.
But the fundamental tax, equivalent to what you and I pay on a personal level, 2%. How is that right?
Well, the question is, which has come up in the hearings today, in a global economy, exactly where does the transaction take place? If we look back, 50 or 100 years...
Is it right for a company who earn billions of pounds to pay
but are they earning this in Ireland or in the UK? If you have a transaction that takes place partly in Ireland and partly in the United Kingdom, who gets the money? Obviously, as British taxpayers, we want to say we want it, but the Irish taxpayers want it too. So we've got to be clearer about whether we consider that an Irish or a British transaction.
Sunny?
Sure, but this kind of shows, I think, where the loopholes are in the global system. So it allows companies like Google to say, well, we're going to capture this money in Ireland rather than the UK. Or even, they could take it to the Cayman Islands and they could have an office there.
But they're not breaking any laws, are they?
No,
I mean, they're just doing what they're allowed to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't you in the same situation?
And that's the problem that we have right now, which is that actually as countries and the economy has become globalized, our tax systems have not caught up with that. And we should make sure that companies do pay their fair share of tax, otherwise they hurt British companies. I mean, the problem with here, especially a company like Amazon and Google, is that smaller companies who are based in the UK and are paying their full tax then get hurt. They can't compete against companies like Amazon. That's the problem.
But we cannot actually levy tax on the basis of a political argument about what constitutes a fair share. People disagree about that. Well, you'll have one view of what a fair share is. I might have another. You actually need to collect tax based on what is written in the law,
but the question
not some moral argument about what you think people should be obliged to pay.
But why is a British bookseller paying, say, 20% tax and Amazon paying 2%?
Because it is absolutely unambiguous if you run a bookstore on the corner of a high street that all of those transactions are taking place in the UK. No. If you are looking at transactions that involve different jurisdictions, it becomes considerably more complicated.
Right, and the problem is actually... And the problem is actually that tax laws allow companies to say, well, we're going to book part of our revenue in this country rather than this country.
So they should.
Right, and so, the point isn't so they should. The point is actually the laws need to be changed. And actually Vince Cable said today that we need to do something about this.
But the problem is
this government's not doing anything on it, and that's the problem.
Lots of tweets on this, Mark. This one for you from Graham Lowe, who says big companies should pay more because they earn more, especially when people are struggling to get by. I mean, there is a moral issue here. I mean, as an individual, surely you would agree with that. It's morally wrong for them not to pay their fair share.
Well, my own view is I'd scrap corporation tax altogether. This seems to be one of the most complex taxes to collect. You're far easier to collect tax on income and the like, rather than trying to measure exactly what proportion of these big companies' profits are.
How would you pay for the bills in this country then?
We're spending way too much money. The problem isn't that we're taxing too little.
I don't think the issue is that, because actually you can change the laws and make it easier for companies to pay taxes.
But so you don't want to lose these companies. They're big employers as well, do you?
Right, so we need to have a global agreement to make sure that companies can't just settle in Cayman Islands and say, well, we're going to pay zero tax. And that's when you get to the race to the bottom.
Republic of Ireland, it's not the Cayman Islands.
What's the chance of getting a global agreement, do you reckon?
Well, no, there are some places that you can do that. I mean, the United States, for example, does that quite well. So we should try harder on that front.
What do you think? Should the law change?
I want to see tax competition between different countries, not one global tax rate.
We end up competing with the Cayman Islands for 0% tax.
We're competing with France as well, and Ireland's competing with us, and that's a damn good thing for our economy.
Look, the thing is, these companies benefit from British education. They should pay for the taxes
and
for that.
They pay a fortune.
We'll have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you so much for tonight.